This is a public hearing for the comment on the tentative millage rate, and we're going to have two votes, one on the millage rate and one on the budget. So,
Public comment first. Public comment first.
right. Do we have public comments? Okay. Yes, we do.
I don't know which
All right,
one.
Mr. Slavin? Not Mr. Slavin.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. My name is Dr. Michelle S. Pavlovsky. I live at 109 Kings Quarry Lane, St. Augustine Beach, Florida. This is my first meeting that I've attended, and I have several questions. I'm wondering whether or not your activities are duplication of effort of the Board of Education. If you're talking about an education program, shouldn't the Board of Education be involved in this? It seems like, and I don't know what your qualifications are of the people on your education committee. I've got a Doctor of Science. I've been on the faculty of Indiana University and George Washington University. So I'm going to follow up with some correspondence to get further details and recommend to the county commission at the next meeting that there be an examination of your activities and whether or not it's a duplication of effort of the Board of Education. Maybe there needs to be liaisons and so forth. So that's my perspective and that's my public comment. Thank you very much for listening to me.
Thank you for your comments. Mr. Slavin?
Good evening. Ed Slavin, box 3084, edslavin.com. Want to thank you for the procedures we're following. And I'm waiting for requests to be answered. I did several open records requests in contemplation of this meeting, and I can't ask those questions now because I haven't gotten the records. So I'm going to have to reserve the balance of my time. I think we have a right to know, and our right to know is being delayed. I made requests timely in time to have the records, in time to ask for, well, I'm just going to say it. Let's go to the rollback rate. There's too much padding in the budget. My late mentor, the Honorable Nahum Litt, the Chief Judge of the U.S. Department of Labor for 16 years, he told me when I was knee-high to a grasshopper as a law clerk, he said, any government budget can be cut 10%. And what we see in this board, in the county commission, in both cities, and every other government agency in the state of Florida is they don't even try. They don't even try to cut the budget. And the purpose of this trim hearing, by the way, Judge Litt told me years ago when we first moved to Florida, and he moved here before us, he said that there is no legal time limit into how many questions you can ask at a trim hearing or how much time you can take, and that they're supposed to answer your questions. Well, that never happens in the city of St. Augustine. That never happens in St. Johns County. Our questions don't get answered. Last year, for the St. Johns County Board of County Commissioners, I gave them in writing 104 questions about the budget. And we had, in the Sheriff's Department, over 5 years, $786,785 in embezzlement. And we've got an insurance proposal, I'll talk about this later. Right now, it doesn't, on page 9, it doesn't have enough policy limitation there to cover the kind of offenses that can occur. On the page that's called crime, no, look at the policy limits there. They're not enough. So we need to address the issues, actually get a budget committee going. We need to have an intergovernmental relations committee, as we used to have until the former county administrator, Michael David Wanchik, just abolished the intergovernmental relations committee. There's no principled reason why St. Johns County, for instance, doesn't ask y'all at mosquito control every time a new development is considered, every time there's a new overdevelopment project, they should ask mosquito control, how is this development on, say, Travis Hudson's land going to affect your ability to provide mosquito control services in swamps? I think it has to increase your costs. Intuitively, logically, when you build a new development in a swamp, it's going to increase the cost of mosquito control. So is this board, is mosquito control cross-subsidizing developers? Should we make them pay? And shouldn't the county at least talk to you? Oh, we're considering 6,000 homes here in Travis Hudson land in the northern part of the county. Shouldn't we ask mosquito control what they
Mr.
think?
Slavin, I'm sorry, but your time is up.
Well, I'd like to ask, through the chair, learned counsel to opine about what Judge Litt told me, which is in the trim law. Is there any limit on how much people can ask and when we get our questions answered? Because I'm not really satisfied with St. Johns County or any of these boards. I think we can trim the fat. I think we need to ask questions and demand answers, and I thank you, ma'am.
You're welcome. Mr. Howell.
I just cut real quick to the chase. I received a letter saying that if you set this millage rate at .1700, that roughly you'll gather about $564,000 in excess. And I believe, and Mr. Scott can maybe help me on this, you have about $11 million in your reserve money, is that correct? In all your holdings?
That number, yes, as of
That's,
August
okay,
31st.
okay. So there you have $564,000 more than I feel like you should have. So, and you probably have a cheat sheet up there that tells you all the different, and I don't have one. But
You
anyhow.
want to look at mine?
Excuse me? No, you guys can figure this out after I leave. And I was probably kind of guessing on this, but I would think you would put it at .1680 maybe, or even less than that. I don't know what number comes out to that. But I'd like for you to have a even line on your budget, not a $500,000 more coming to you when you got $11 million in reserve. This is taxpayers' money. And I don't think we're giving them such a hot deal there, a good deal. So I encourage this board to keep it low key, keep it down. So, you know, I have about 4 pieces of property myself. So, but I think mosquito control, and I've always said this, is one of the best deals going. So with that said, also the good doctor, I know him real well back here. I'll talk with him a little bit about what's going on and try to help you on this. And thank you, Mr. Slavin. You've always got some good creative ideas. Thank you. Thank you, board. Appreciate it.
Thank you. All right.
So,
Please.
So I did, for interest of being open, I did publish an open letter to citizens in St. Johns County, because when you look at, if we wanted to keep the budget flat, or the tax revenue flat from what we calculated last year, which was $8,160,000, your millage would be set this year at .159. I sent Scott, that was an estimate, I sent it to you and Dr. Shu for testing my numbers, but that was basically the number I came up with the calculation. I believe that given the fact that I'm looking at where the money's going, it's not going into staffing, salaries aren't going up. It's like minimal from the last year. We have increased the number of service areas in this county. Staffing is not keeping up with it. Meanwhile, we're putting money into more operating expenses. That to me doesn't sound right. It sounds like we're taking an additional $564,000 and figuring out where to plug it so we can spend it. That is not appropriate use of taxpayer dollars. Nobody has been able to date, to convince me, one, that we're not spending more than we need to, and worse, that getting an additional $564,000 in revenue is even needed. So I think if we wanted to do right by citizens, we will, especially in this economic climate, we would keep the tax revenue flat, the millage rate would be set at .159, or better yet, this board consider actually reducing the millage below that and actually give back some of the money to the taxpayers. That's my word.
Do any of the other commissioners have comments? Commissioner Becker.
So right now, we are at .180. The proposed millage is to go down to .170. And then the rollback number is .1667. Commissioner Gleason, you're suggesting
Keep it, if you wanted to
to
keep.
what,
flat-
one,
Rollback says you keep your revenue flat. But when I calculate my rollback, I'm calculating based on the 2023, 24. And we made up numbers, we grew, not made up numbers, our revenue grew because people paid late. And so that is not truly, for me, the
The
rollback.
rollback is kind of strange.
The rollback's based on what actually is brought in, the true number, which comes later, closer to the new, it is kind of strange the way they do it. So your calculation of .159 would give you even revenue to this current year.
Yeah.
So you're right on that, so.
And I think that's what we should go to. We should never be counting on late, people paying late and getting penalties. That's just not right,
well, why does it say .1667
because he didn't,
instead of that one?
because he didn't roll it back to that. He rolled it
They-
back to what,
This is the formula they give us to use. So the rollback is based
Oh.
on what the real number comes in
is
Almost.
taking in more money.
almost a year later, what the true collections of revenues are based on the taxpayers that might have defaulted, and then the liens that get collected and the penalties. So really, the rollback is the true number, but it doesn't coincide with what we actually budgeted for the current year. So if you went back to .159, that would give you about what we brought in, or what we budgeted this year.
Yeah.
But we actually do get more than the budget,
Yep,
so I'd have
because
to
we
look at
only
that.
budget 0.95% of the total, the
That's-
100%.
Yes, they want us to have a 5% margin of error for the people that don't pay their taxes and things like that.
So, but,
Conservatism in budgeting is basically why they do that.
so we've been running over 100% for the last at least 3 years. We've been running over 100% in collection.
103.1% on the average,
So,
that's what it's, yeah.
Okay, so I could finish up my comment real quick.
All right.
I do want to state that we do have the lowest millage rate of any mosquito district in the state. I just want everyone to make sure they know that. We've been trying hard. Every year since I've worked here, we've lowered it, so I have no problem lowering it. If we can be good at that rollback number, I have no problem supporting that as long as we're going to be okay with it. I mean, we were told we do have the reserve, so I think that if there was an emergency that needed quite a bit, we know that it's about $1 million for hurricanes. So if we have the money there, I would support a rollback. But I'm not sure which one, if it's the .167, or do we just want to do it at
yeah, the
1.6.
.167 still gives you about $300,000 more than you collected last year. So you're not truly giving anybody a tax decrease.
So
You're
at
just collecting less.
.160, then that's good.
Say that again?
I mean,
The rollback does assume that we're going to get pretty close to this number by the end of, by now, we should have probably gotten it, but right now where we've gotten about 8.3 million we brought in. So really, if the rollback's correct, we should actually collect pretty close to 8.5, but we still get some late revenues, so we could still get some more. But
we have new developments going in, we have new, we're gonna earn more just because property values are going up and because new housing is being constructed. So
the-
to say that it's ever gonna be below that rollback number, that rollback number is above what we budgeted last year.
yeah,
Well, with our expenditures on the budget side of it at 9.2,
That's
that's
because
the
they-
one I'm looking at.
Because that's because they plugged that, they put in projects in there to make it balance. You can't, if you bring X amount in, you have to spend 95% of it. So that includes all the grants, so they're gonna have to offset. That's what I'm trying to say, they have to budget that, so it's an artificial, I hate to say that, use that word, but it is, it's an artificial budget. You're plugging in dollars to offset revenue that you know you're not gonna technically spend.
Okay, so I'll
Hopefully
make a
not spend.
motion to roll it back to 0.1600. and that
I
should
could
be
live
the
with
flat rate.
I could live with that. I had .159, but that's close enough.
Sorry, Chair.
Do you move? Anybody else have any other comments?
Dr. Qualls, I'd like to hear what you have to say. I know, but
Well, I defer to our expert here,
Right,
Mr. Hanna and Dr. Shu. However, I think that the commissioners bring up good points, that we are working with a very good budget, that, moving forward, our total expenditures without the capital outlay will certainly be with a rollback. So I think that, if the board so wishes, that we as an organization can make sure that
I
we're
mean,
still
we're-
effective, efficient, and provide the best public health pest control that we can, so.
And we're done with all our capital projects for now, so we don't have to, the SIT buildings, they got the sinks, by the way, in case, I know, because I've been waiting.
So I
My
do think that we
hand.
have budgeted in this year to advance some of our, our vehicles as far as the equipment that's on them. We're looking at, also FDAX is providing some money for that. We have some coverage for pesticides, which will also benefit us. So I think that what we have budgeted is moving our program forward with less maintenance in the future, hopefully. So as long as we're still able to achieve those goals, then I think that as the board wishes, we should be able to move forward effectively.
And let's not forget, we're sitting on 11 million of reserves and cash on hand. That's not there just for unending amount of money.
What I was going to mention, one last thing, is the two variables you got to consider, though, is are we going to charge an admission fee?
We tabled that.
Yeah, no, I know, but what I'm saying, these are variables you have to consider. Are we going to bring in revenue to help support the education center? And what are the operating costs going to be? Because we're still in its infancy of it being open. Things are going to break down and things are going to need maintained. And it's going to take a few years for us to have the learning curve of what the operational costs for that facility are.
And
So
what
that's
about-
where some of this money is going to go. It's not going to be used for capital. It'll be used for that. And are we going to have revenues to help buffer it through admissions? That's the question.
And then what about our drainage and storage building?
Yep,
I mean,
yes,
What,
You have $11 million in capital.
today, but that could change.
Well, in 1 year, it's going to change.
who knows?
I hope not. Then you've done a really bad job being a CFO.
I will say that the drainage issue is something that, is of high priority that we should consider. I know that the board has tabled that, but,
Well, the
that does-
draining, I don't think we tabled it. We said it was going to be put in the budget, and I thought it was already baked in the budget. That doesn't take us to $9.1 million. I'm sorry. 400,000 was the last bid we got on that. If you think we're going to increase that, giving taxpayers taking another $562,000 is fair. That's,
I mean, nothing you say is unreasonable.
Okay. All right, so do we have a motion? Oh,
I think
Dr.
she-
Shu?
Thank you.
I have comments.
Yeah, I think that we do have a
Give me 1 second.
bunch of reserve money there. It's reasonable, but every year, last 5 years, every year, we reduce. Because lucky more people move in, more building proper value increase. But I said we need to consider about the next year, now the county started, developer, maybe little bit, or the marketing, we have no idea next year what's happening. So I think 0.1600, it should be fine,
Okay.
we can do that.
Okay.
Yeah, the lowest, yeah, we can, at least also we can try to cut the corner from others, think about it. You can try to use some reserve money. It's really a bunch of reserve money, tax money put there, make it interesting. That's not a good sign, yeah.
Okay. Commissioner Brandhurst?
Yeah, well, Dr. Shu brought up some of my concerns as well as the continued exponential growth in St. Johns County. We have to also consider that. So I don't want to put any number on the millage rate because I'm not qualified to do that. That's not my field of expertise. to come up with what the number should actually be, but I am qualified to evaluate the numbers as they're presented. But I'm not qualified to come up with what the numbers should be, but I am concerned about the continued growth in the county. I'm concerned about the continued cost, increased cost of doing business, and also increased cost of chemicals. That's a huge, huge expense that continues to go up every year.
Very good, thank you, Commissioner.
Hopefully with our sit lab, that'll go down.
Yes.
Because we'll be able to release them.
That's the goal. All right, do we have a motion? Do you want to
Yep.
repeat your motion? Would you repeat it?
Okay, just for, to be
Oh, wait, we
clear,
have- you have
I'm
to-
sorry, we have
Oh, I was
another.
just going to make one last comment. On the behalf of the accounting department, just keep in mind, we, the accounting department, A and myself, we're not full-time budget analysts. I mean, I wish I would. I think that'd be funner. We have got people that walk in and asking why there's more taxes taken out of their paycheck, and we cut checks. So we wear a lot of hats. If we had more time to analyze this budget, I'm sure it's 110%, it'd be 120% good, so, just keep in mind that that's not all we do, is just analyze and forecast budgets.
Right,
So,
thank you,
thank you.
Mr. Howell.
Stay right there a minute, I may need you to help me out.
Okay, sure.
Let's do, I need to know, if you set the millage rate at 0.1700, and you have that excess $500,000, and you figure out that we can run our budget and do all the things we need to do, and here sets this $500,000 that we collected, what are we gonna do with it?
Back in capital.
What are we gonna do with it?
Well, if,
put it in the reserve.
yeah.
Put it back in, put it in reserve. So your reserve is gonna get, so the taxpayer actually doesn't get it back. Okay? So, I know Dennis Hollingsworth used to, of course, he's not there anymore, but anyhow, when he had an excess, he turned it over to the county, and they spent it for the good of St. Johns County. So, that answered that question. So now we build a bigger reserve, okay? Let's say that we set the millage rate at 0.160, and we run along during the year, and we run short. What are we gonna do? We're gonna tap the reserve?
Do a
Okay, I think y'all
contingency, yeah.
understand now, and I understand, that that's what you would do in any normal year. That's what a reserve is for,
Correct.
okay? Probably everybody in here has a little savings account and a checking account. Checking account gets a little low, we go to the reserve. Pull money over. Does it make good business sense? So, of course, you have to, kind of break it down for this old country boy so I understand it real well. But I just encourage you to, let's keep it as low as possible, survive, pay good people good salaries. That makes St. Johns County happy, that makes employees happy, that makes us do a good job. And so I think that would be a win-win for everybody. And I got one other thing I need to say, and I don't know whether this is the right time to say it or not, but I'm gonna say it, and this is better to ask for forgiveness. This educational center out here is supposed to be free to the kids in St. Johns County. I fought for that. And by God, if I ever come back to that board, I'll fight to keep it that way. I'll tell you that now.
Thank you, Mr. Howell. Okay, I think we're ready to vote here.
Okay, so I
Can
have
I
a
Propose
motion.
a compromise millage rate.
Yeah, I think that's what Commissioner,
She was
So
told-
I have a motion to roll back the millage rate from our current 0.1800 back to a flat rate of 0.1600. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
all in favor? All right, unanimous.
Okay.
All right, good job. All right, and then we have to also vote on the budget. So do we have a motion to approve the budget?
Well, does that impact the going to impact your numbers, right?
Yes.
Can we bring that, do we have to do it tonight, or can we bring?
You
do
have
have
to vote tonight.
Well, I think you have to turn it in to FDAC.
No, we have a second hearing, we have a second
You have a
meeting
second
on the
hearing.
budget.
So you do need
Yeah,
to
we got another
recompute
meeting
to the
on
extent you can, if you know the delta between the two millage rates.
So we should have the delta.
You should be able to come up with that new number.
Oh, just the new number, that's right.
Yeah, we just have to adjust it for the final hearing.
Can he,
There's
for the
no-
final, not for
Can we
tonight?
No, not
can we
tonight, so-
approve it tonight and then do it on the,
The statute says you have to approve the budget.
Well, can they
Okay.
then, can we move on to the next and let them calculate the new number?
I would suggest maybe you
I-
you take a 5-minute recess. to
I
look
can
at
go
it and
plug,
call
if you want to go continue other business, I can go, A and I will plug the number and bring it back.
insurance?
It's up to you. Again, you have two separate meetings here,
Okay.
so however you want to do your public hearing is
I
up
will
to you.
adjourn this meeting
For
for
5 minutes, go run.
Okay,
5 minutes.
And-
No
Anybody-
pressure.
okay, yeah, okay.
Well, the delta
We'll
should
walk
be
back
easy.
and-
Hey, Scott, can you just, math-wise, it's 8725, no.
Oh, I'm sorry, let me make sure.
It's 8725,124, and then the 821188, if you subtract
Yeah.
those two,
Yep,
that's your
so
delta.
8,211,881, which is the new,
Yeah, that's the new
revenue.
number. And then
and that should be it,
that's your delta.
yeah.
So then you,
That's why you're here.
Yeah, we're just gonna plug it into the spreadsheet and we'll print it out and, well, we can give you the summary page, but as far
Well,
as.
yeah, we just
print-
need what the final budget is.
Yeah, that's fine, okay.
So it's just the difference in the delta.
Okay, 500,000.
It's 513, we got the number for you. 513.
513, 243.
Hey, Scott, it's 513, 243
Yes.
less. So
Okay,
whatever
yeah.
budget
Just
number.
let them do it since these.
Yeah.
Okay. We got a 5-minute
And that'll be-
adjourn. To order. And we have,
Right now, they're presenting a proposed, they're revising and recomputing the proposed budget. We're waiting for, well, he has distributed an amended document. There are still some things that need to be adjusted. So we're waiting for that
but
new document.
this is recomputing using the new millage rate of .1600. Okay. We can vote on that, right?
You need
I
to,
think you need a number. Do we have,
Well, it's
without
going to be
Scott?
two votes, right?
But-
she just
but
was
what-
in-
You've already voted on the
budget.
millage. Now you're just voting on the budget.
Okay.
So this is what.
I would like
it was
Mr. Hannah to confirm with me.
And this is what we have.
Hang on, he's bringing the new budget number. Hold
Is-
on. What was his new number? Did he give it to you? Commissioner, please.
He said the new number is that, but it's only changing by 10,000.
Chair, do you mind if I say something?
No, please go ahead.
Just so, because I know everyone doesn't have a book and people on camera don't, I would just want to show what we're all looking at here. So, the proposed rollback was for .17, and so since I made a motion for .16, we're making a new paper to show the new budget, so we can talk about it and have the accurate number. So it's just, so everyone knows what we're doing here.
Are we recessed currently, or?
No, we're still in session, we're just waiting.
working so fast on this?
In the 10,264, I pointed out to Commissioner Gleason, the operation expenses went down by that amount. That's 2% of the tax collector fees, which is part of that. So it's based on revenue calculation.
Thanks. Thank you.
Sure.
The new budget. The new budget.
I would ask
Yeah, wanna share?
Scott to confirm it.
Actually, yes, sir.
I think it's this number.
Sure.
Which one? This one? But that math doesn't
Yeah. and-
jive.
Mr. Hannah, so what is our new final budget number?
9,202.
The 9?
When people say budget number, I always say budgeted revenues or budgeted expenditures.
Right.
So budgeted revenues is now 8,911,881,
Okay.
and then the expenditures is $9,202,450.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Do we have any discussion on this?
I noticed that, just a question on the capital outlays, we have 1.4 million on that,
Let me
and,
grab my detail.
yeah, I see the detail. We need all that stuff? Yeah, 363,000. Just in, like, golf carts and, I just lost the page again.
These are items that the different departments give us, and we put them in the budget.
But was there justification for all those items? Do you have justification other than a number?
Myself personally, because I don't do the operational part, so these are all based on what the department heads deem necessary.
We do have our justification.
Yes, well, in the first draft, we had it behind the binder, the three-ring binder. There's a copy of each one of these requests behind it. We can
So
always make
before
it.
the final board meeting, for the final budget meeting, if I go back to that binder, that
Yeah.
number
It's right
will
here.
tie to that number.
They
Oh,
should.
So each department says what they
Yeah, yeah,
need,
yeah.
why they need it.
Yeah, I know, I'm just saying, is the number gonna
Yeah.
tie? The number's gonna be the same.
We're going to try to use a standardized form next year, so every one looks kind of similar from each department head. It will be easier to look at next
It
year.
should. It should, yes.
That's the only hint, because I don't have it in front of me.
Okay, Mr.
The capital outlay.
Wanted to follow up, Ed Slavin, box 3084, edslavin.com. I want to follow up on Commissioner Gleason's question about the need for a detailed budget justification for every single line item. And I finally remember my late friend Maureen Ortegas and I once went to the city of St. Augustine circa 15 years ago, and we asked to see the detailed budget justification for every single line item, and they actually had it. Each line item was a page of verbal, written, coherent description as to why they needed that money. Bill Harris, whatever else he did, he ran a tight shop, and that's what we expect around here. For every single line item, from this day forward, there needs to be a detailed budget justification. Not gimme, my name's Jimmy, but here's a detailed justification. Here's why we need a golf cart. I don't think we need golf carts. Here's why we need foreign travel. I don't know how much foreign travel we do, but I'd like to see a detailed justification of it. I have an idea of what the justification might be, and what kind of hotels are we staying in, and how many conferences are we going to? How many times do we spend rack rate in hotels for conferences when we could be doing a lot better? I remember Judge Litt one time, there was a American Bar Association convention in Honolulu, in Waikiki. He found us $50 a night hotel rooms in Waikiki. There is no reason for, say, a conference, FMCA or AMCA, that everybody has to go, or that everybody has to stay in a Fancy Bears hotel and have a Fancy Bears dinner. It's our money. Anyway, I'd like to see the detailed budget justifications before the second trim hearing, and I'd like them online, and I'd like there to be an iterative process, kind of like the one that Maureen Ortegas and I did with Mark Litzinger, just on the fly, the three of us. Can you please explain? And he had an entire box of detailed budget justifications. But most government agencies, they don't even take the rubber bands off the files. They just rubber stamp. Too much of that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Slavin. All right. So do we have a motion to approve the budget?
I'll make a motion to approve the new budget based off of the millage rate of .1600. And so that would make the new budget the $8,121,897. Is that the correct number?
Yes.
That's the beginning fund balance at the end of the year. The 8,121,897 would be, that's last year's beginning fund balance, last year's ending fund balance, which becomes this year's beginning fund balance. So actually, the budgeted revenue is this. Well, if you take just the tax revenues, it's at the 8.2, right there, that first line. Then you add the other budgeted items, it's the 8.9, that's the whole budgeted revenues. Your budget expenditures is down here. So your,
So our budget's negative $200.
we're gonna have,
No.
we're gonna have a deficit.
What's the budget number that we had?
Well,
8,211,881.
yep, that's the budgeted revenues,
Revenue.
based on the tax millage.
All right,
So,
That's the color.
I do have a question.
It's the,
okay,
yeah.
go ahead.
The capital outlays from the board book in June
I said this one and everyone said no.
do not tie to the budget outlay number in this revision, unless I'm missing something. We have to take
But
the budget.
the budget, what's the final budget number?
It says at before the conclusion of the public hearing,
Eight.
the law requires you to adopt the amended.
8,211,881. That's the budgeted number that
Millage
you're
rate.
talking. Because I always said, when people ask me, I said, like, budgeted
Well, that's what I
revenues.
said and everyone said no.
Yeah, that's the budgeted revenue
I-
based on tax
Okay.
millage.
8,911,881, right?
That's all the revenues. Yes.
Make of your budget.
That's our budget, yes.
That's correct. You have
Yes,
amended
that's-
your millage rate, which affects the tax
Yes.
revenue, but that's not the exclusive source of your revenue. So
So we have to add the other.
your total revenue should represent your total budget.
Okay.
And what about our expenditures?
But it has to match, and that's the thing, it's not matching, so
The-
Well, but it
they
came-
reduced it, yeah.
Before the. public-
Operating
final
expenses went down
Yeah.
by that amount, the 2% of the tax collector.
But
Okay, so I'll make a motion to accept the new budget of $8,911,881.
Yes.
Is
Can I-
everyone on board with that
can I-
number?
can I have,
That's the right number.
I have a question,
Sure.
Okay.
because the number for capital outlays, you said nothing's changed other than the revenue to the tax collector, that went down by 10,000, and every other line item stayed the same. But if what Commissioner Becker gave me is correct, the
Are you
capital
talking,
outlay does not match.
But it should also include,
are you talking about from the first budget hearing in the hard binder? Like, when
Yeah.
you're saying it's not matching,
this one.
Yeah, I was
Okay.
told that nothing had changed.
the one visual way to see it easily is if you go to, since the first budget hearing, like on page 3, this shows the history, the summary of how the budget changes from meeting to meeting.
Okay, thank you, because I've been asking, did the numbers change?
Well, they
And I
do,
was
yeah,
told,
so I
no, they
thought
didn't
because that's on
change.
page 3. Yeah, so you'll see the first proposed one on 613, and then, so the difference between 613 and the 912 meeting is summarized, those differences are summarized right here. Actually, I think the meeting on 711 and 912, nothing changed between those
Right.
two meetings.
Okay, thank you, it's
Sure.
right here, thanks.
Thank you.
Okay,
All right, do we have a second?
I'll second now.
All right.
Think we have a public
I
comment.
think, wait, we have a public.
Madam Chairman, I have some questions here.
Okay.
You guys batted that thing back and forth, and Scott just showed you this and that and the other, so forth, so the general public out there is probably really confused. Okay? So, to kind of make it simple, and, how much money are you gonna take in? Which number? Show me. what-
8.2,
Huh?
8.2 million.
8.2
$8,200,000,
And
Yes.
what?
8,900,000,
No,
Eleven.
No,
881,
from taxes.
the
it's
total
8.9.
revenue,
No, total is 8.9.
total revenue, this number right here,
It's 8.9.
we'll put a little
That's,
asterisk beside it.
including grants.
How much you gonna spend all year?
9,202.
9 million, so you're in a deficit already?
Yeah, use the.
Why would you
reserve.
set a millage rate where you'd be in a deficit? That's really confusing to
We're
me.
trying to run down the reserves, but actually having a deficit, that
Just
makes us have to dip into the reserve.
Right, absolutely, that's what we said before,
That's
so
where
when you
the
run short.
conflict.
Yeah.
But
That's
why
what
would you
we're
set a
doing.
millage rate, if you're gonna keep the 11 million, why would you set a millage rate that's gonna put us in a deficit? To me, that really don't.
No, it actually does make, you know what, because they're not touching the
I
expenses.
couldn't quite hear you, Mark.
They're not touching expenses. If they wanted to touch expenses, they could keep it, they can keep the 11 million flat. But actually, what we're trying to do is, by reducing the reserves, you're actually giving back money to
Okay,
the taxpayers.
okay.
You're not charging them for
So
your,
that makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Gleason, I appreciate that. All right, thank you.
All right.
And if anybody, I have the budget book, if anyone wants to look at it as well while we're here.
One other thing I'd like to say, you know, you're trying to make this thing simpler, if you had it up on the screen where everybody can see it. I mean, the general public out there, and I assume you're recording these so that we're gonna put it on the website so people can see it, so forth and so on.
It's on YouTube.
And all they're gonna hear is some talking up here and some numbers, but if they had something that they can actually see, so we'll be,
I
thank
don't
you.
know what it's gonna look like.
We can certainly.
God help us, I don't know
accommodate
what's
that.
gonna
Yeah.
come out that
Yes.
video.
Public hearing, I guess.
The next board meeting, you
Yes,
can do
okay.
that.
Are we in the middle of a motion? And a second?
Yes, you are.
Yes,
Yeah.
okay. So we have a motion and a second. Let's vote. All in favor of accepting the new budget? It's unanimous. Thank you. Now,
All right, so just before you close this public hearing, I just want to confirm for the public that your adopted tentative millage rate is .1600, which is below the rollback rate. And your tentative amended budget has been revised to match that proposed millage rate, and all of that will be advertised for your final budget hearing. Okay, close.
thank you. All right. This meeting is adjourned.
No,
We'll
no,
go